Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive on The Godfather. You know, I think it's safe to say that this film is a true cinematic masterpiece. So let's dig into what makes it such a landmark film.
Yeah, and what's really cool about The Godfather is how it's so much more than just your average crime drama. It's like a Shakespearean tragedy, but with pinstripes and Tommy guns.
Okay, I love the Shakespeare with Tommy guns, and it all kicks off with that amazing wedding scene, right? Like it's such a great microcosm of the whole movie, all this joyous celebration happening. But then you've got Vito Corleone, the Don, pulling strings in the background. What's your first impression of the Corleone family from that scene?
Well, you know right off the bat that you're dealing with a powerful family. They command respect, they have influence, but there's also this underlying tension and almost ominous feeling, even in the midst of this happy occasion. And Coppola does a fantastic job setting up that duality right from the start.
Totally. And you know who else embodies that idea of duality, Michael? Yeah. He starts out wanting nothing to do with the family business. In fact, he almost seems to disapprove of it, but then everything changes with the assassination attempt on Vito.
Yeah, that's the turning point, right? The catalyst that forces Michael down a path he never wanted for himself. It's almost like a classic Greek tragedy, where fate steps in and sets the protagonist on a path to destruction.
Oh, man. And that restaurant scene with Michael Solaso and McCluskey, I was on the edge of my seat. It's such a brutal introduction into the Mafia world, like a point of no return for Michael.
Exactly. That scene is so powerful because it marks this complete shift for Michael. He goes from war hero to cold-blooded killer, and the way Coppola directs it, the claustrophobic setting, the lighting, the sudden violence, it all makes you feel the weight of that decision, that permanent change in Michael.
It's interesting, though, because there's this tension between Michael's own ambition and the Omerta and the Mafia's code of silence and revenge. How does that factor into his transformation?
Well, the Omerta kind of traps the Corleones in this endless cycle of violence. It makes it near impossible to escape the life once you're in. And for Michael, it becomes a way to justify his actions. He tells himself it's all to protect his family. But that code, it also feeds his own desire for power.
And that brings us to one of the most captivating aspects of The Godfather, the seductive and corrupting nature of power. As Michael climbs the ranks, you see him compromise his morals bit by bit.
It's a classic story of ambition and moral downfall, a theme that echoes through history and literature. Just think of Macbeth or Faust. They all start with good intentions, but the chase for power ultimately consumes them, and The Godfather portrays that descent with such nuance and complexity.
Yeah, it's like he becomes a darker reflection of his father, right? Because
Uh,
Vito, for all his ruthlessness, was devoted to his family. There's that constant battle trying to balance his love for them with the brutality of his business.
That's what makes Vito such a compelling character. He embodies that contradiction in the American dream. That idea that success can justify any means, even if it means violence and corruption. And Brando's performance captures that perfectly. His voice, his gestures, even his silences, they all convey the weight of his power and the internal struggles he faces.
Oh, man. Brando is just iconic as Don Corleone. You can't imagine anyone else in that role.
Hmm.
But Pacino's performance is just as captivating. You see that shift from war hero to ruthless boss as if the light is slowly fading from his eyes.
It's a masterclass in subtlety, the way Pacino plays it. He doesn't overdo it, instead letting Michael's inner turmoil simmer beneath the surface. You
Yeah.
see it in his eyes, the way he carries himself. It's so effective at showing the psychological impact of his decisions.
Absolutely, and we can't forget the visual brilliance of the film. Coppola's direction is just masterful, the way he balances those intimate family moments with the epic scale of the crime drama. And Gordon Willis's cinematography is breathtaking. The use of light and shadow creates this almost operatic atmosphere, heightening the story's emotional intensity.
The cinematography is like another character in the story. Willis uses chiaroscuro, a technique that comes from Renaissance painting. It's all about contrasting light and dark, and it creates this visual tension that reflects the struggles of the characters. You literally see them going in and out of darkness as they make choices that lead them further down this path of corruption.
That's so true. It's like the visuals are telling their own story alongside the characters.
Exactly, and that's another piece of why The Godfather is such a cinematic masterpiece. Everything works together, the acting, the directing, the cinematography. It all creates this rich, layered experience that completely pulls you in. And it's not just the visuals, right? The music plays such a huge role, too. Nino Rota's score is so iconic, it immediately takes you to that world of the Italian-American family and the mafia.
Oh, totally. The main theme is haunting and melancholic, but also kind of beautiful. It's like the Corleone family itself. It's amazing how music can add so much depth and emotion to a film.
It's like a Greek chorus, commenting on the action and foreshadowing what's to come. You hear those strings and you just know things are going to go south for these characters.
Speaking of things going south, can we talk about the final act?
Hmm.
The tension just keeps building with every scene. And that baptism sequence, intercut with the murders of Michael's enemies, it's one of the most chilling things I've ever seen.
Coppola's use of montage in that sequence is just brilliant. You've got the sacred ritual, the baptism contrasted with these brutal acts of violence. It's like a visual representation of the two worlds that Michael is caught between, the world of family and faith and the world of bloodshed and revenge.
It's almost as if he's trying to use the baptism to cleanse himself of the sins he's committing at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. But of course it doesn't really work that way. The violence he orchestrates during the baptism, it taints him completely. He's crossed the line. There's no going back.
And it's so heartbreaking to see Kay, his wife, witnessing it all. She realizes the full extent of Michael's transformation. He's become the very thing she feared, the thing she tried to pull him away from.
It's a powerful statement about the corrupting nature of power. Michael, in his quest to protect his family, has become the monster he was trying to destroy. And Kay, who represents innocence and morality, is left to deal with the consequences of his choices.
It's such a tragic ending in a way. Michael wins, right?
Yeah.
He solidifies his power,
Yeah.
gets rid of his enemies, but at what cost? He's lost his soul, his wife, his innocence. He's completely alone.
And you really feel that isolation in the final moments of the film, that shot of Michael sitting by himself in his study, the door slowly closing him off from the world. It's like a visual metaphor for his self-imposed exile. He may be the Godfather, but he's also a prisoner of his own making.
You know, it's interesting because Vito, with all his flaws, was always trying to legitimize the family business, to bring them out of the shadows. But Michael, he embraces the darkness. He becomes even more ruthless, more calculating than his father ever was.
And that's the real tragedy, isn't it? Each generation is supposed to build on the successes of the one before, but with the Corleones, each generation seems to sink deeper into this darkness. Michael achieves the power and success that Vito wanted, but he loses everything that truly matters. Family, love, morality.
It's like a cautionary tale about the American dream gone wrong. The Corleones achieved material success, but it's built on violence and corruption, and in the end, it destroys them from the inside out.
And it makes you question the whole idea of the American dream, right? Is it really worth it if you have to sacrifice your soul to achieve it? The Godfather doesn't give you any easy answers, but it definitely raises some deep questions about power, ambition, and the price of success in America.
I think that's what makes it such a timeless and relevant film, even today. It speaks to something fundamental about human nature, about the temptations and consequences of power. I mean, haven't we all been tempted by power in some way at some point?
Exactly. And The Godfather shows us what can happen when we give in to that temptation, when we let our ambition blind us to the consequences of our actions. It's a warning, but it's also a deeply moving story about family loyalty and the choices we make when we're faced with impossible situations.
The film is a masterclass in storytelling and filmmaking. The acting, the direction, the music, the cinematography, everything works together perfectly to create this immersive experience that you just can't forget.
And it's had such a huge impact on our culture. The dialogue, the characters, the imagery, it's all become part of our collective consciousness. You can't talk about crime dramas or organized crime without mentioning The Godfather.
It's true. It's become a cultural touchstone, a reference point for understanding power and the dark side of the American dream. And you know what's amazing about it? It's a film that reveals new layers of meaning every time you watch it.
I totally agree. Every time you watch it, you notice little details you might have missed before, and you get a deeper understanding of the characters and the themes. It's a film that rewards multiple viewings and stays with you long after it's over.
I'm curious, thinking about the film's lasting legacy, why do you think it continues to captivate and fascinate audiences after all these years?
I think it's the universal themes, family loyalty, ambition, betrayal. These are things we all grapple with in some way, and The Godfather places these themes within this larger-than-life world of organized crime, which just amplifies the drama and the stakes.
Yeah, it's true. It's like a modern-day Greek tragedy with these powerful characters caught in this web of fate and their own choices.
Right, and it's a film that doesn't shy away from moral ambiguity. There are no clear-cut heroes or villains. Even Michael, who becomes this ruthless killer, is ultimately driven by the desire to protect his family.
And that's what makes him such a fascinating and tragic character. You understand his motivations even if you don't agree with his actions. He's a cautionary tale about how power can seduce you and how good intentions can lead to terrible outcomes.
And the film also raises those thought-provoking questions about the American dream. The Corleones are striving for it in their own way, Success, wealth, a legacy for their family, but they achieve it through violence and corruption, which ultimately destroys everything they've built.
It's like a twisted take on the American dream, showing the dark side of ambition and the things people will do for power. It really makes you think about the true cost of success.
And that question resonates with so many people, I think. We all want something, whether it's success, recognition, or just a better life. But The Godfather reminds us that the path to those things isn't always easy, and there might be a price to pay.
It's also a film that challenges us to examine our own values.
Yeah.
What would we do if we were in Michael's position? Would we be willing to cross certain lines to protect the people we love?
Those are tough questions, and the film doesn't give us any easy answers. It forces us to confront those moral dilemmas and consider the consequences of our choices.
And that's why it's such a powerful and lasting film. I think it stays with you long after you've seen it, prompting you to reflect and discuss it with others.
Absolutely. It's a film that sparks debate, challenges our perceptions, and makes us think critically about the world around us. And visually, it's stunning. It's just beautiful to watch.
Oh yeah, those images. The horse's head in the bed, the baptism scene, Michael alone in his study, they're so vivid and memorable.
And the dialogue is just as sharp and unforgettable. Lines like, "I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse," or "Leave the gun, take the cannoli." They've become part of our culture.
Totally. And the music, that haunting melody of the main theme, it sets the perfect mood for the entire film.
Nino Rota's score is a masterpiece in itself, so evocative it adds layers of emotion and tension to the film.
The Godfather is more than just a movie. It's a cultural phenomenon. It's inspired countless films and TV shows, books, documentaries, even video games. And it's still referenced and parodied in popular culture all the time.
It really speaks to the film's enduring impact and its ability to connect with audiences across generations.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into The Godfather, I want to leave you with this thought. This film isn't just entertainment. It's a mirror reflecting our own desires, our ambitions, and the choices we make in pursuing them.
It reminds us that power can corrupt, that good intentions can lead us down a dark path, and that the consequences of our actions can be far-reaching.
It's a powerful and thought-provoking film that I believe will continue to resonate with people for years to come. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.